So, I have a confession to make. I never beat Cuphead. I certainly tried my best, but it was just too difficult, and now it's just kind of sitting on my Switch indefinitely, taunting me. Nevertheless, I do really like Cuphead as a franchise. The sheer artistry that goes into it is awe-inspiring. The way the creators deftly and expertly crafted an aesthetic similar to classic cartoons of the 1930s, just, without the racism. If I'm being totally honest, I, and likely many other people, have only ever experienced Cuphead through YouTube videos, and I think that's entirely valid. It's a good way to see the sheer artistry that went into the game. Fortunately, it seems that Netflix is now catering to people like me who want to experience Cuphead without actually playing it, having recently released Cuphead the animated series, which has been in development for several years now. Yeah, I know I devoted a little bit of time to clowning on Netflix in my All of Us Are Dead review, but I kinda need to do it again here, cause it feels like Netflix operates on Newtonian physics. For every terrible adaptation of something good, they then make a great adaptation of something good. It's really weird.
Spike! Spike Spiegel!
Well, I say adaptation, but that's kind of a loose description. Cuphead didn't really have a whole lot in terms of story and lore. There's like 3 actual cutscenes, and even then it's not exactly War and Peace we're dealing with here. For the most part, Netflix took the aesthetics of Cuphead, some of the characters, and sorta jostled them around into a cohesive narrative. Credit where it's due, Netflix really went out of their way to try and capture the look and feel of Cuphead, emulating the style of cartoons from the 1930s, but, again, without the racism involved. It's not hand-drawn animation like Cuphead was, but I think that's an acceptable diversion. Hand-drawn animation is incredibly expensive and time-consuming after all, and while it is digital, it really is very fluid. Okay, there were the occasional moments where my eyes would unfocus and I could see how digital it was, but for the most part it is one of the better looking Western shows I've seen in recent memory. They even went and put a nice film grain onto the footage. Moreover, they went out of their way to animate several 3D claymation segments, similar to some of the stages found in the game, so you certainly couldn't say the animators weren't passionate about the material. Though I would say there's some issues when it comes to how they adapt the story, or rather how they don't adapt the story. Like I said earlier, Cuphead as a game wasn't exactly rich in lore and narrative, and it had a very simple plot. Cuphead and Mugman go to a casino run by the devil, making it slightly less evil than the average casino, end up gambling their souls without realizing it, and, in order to keep their souls from being stolen, they agree to become bounty hunters for the devil, going after the souls of other people he's managed to ensnare in the past. Initially, it seemed like the first episode of the show was about to go a similar way, just with a carnival instead of a casino. But by the end of the first episode, the show kind of forgets about the devil for a few episodes, and Cuphead and Mugman never really try to go after any of the boss characters from the game. Hell, very few of the boss characters actually appear, which I'd say is probably one of the weaker elements of this show. The bosses from Cuphead were all memorable in their own right, a testament to the game's amazing art direction, that they were stood out so much despite never speaking a line of dialogue. As a game, Cuphead was a boss rush by its very nature, so the bosses were kind of a big part of that. It's just strange how the show kind of omits them, and it's not like the antagonists they created for the show were all that interesting in comparison. There's one episode where the 2 brothers are trying to get through a cemetery, and they're being harassed by ghosts, which feels like it'd be a great chance to bring in the Phantom Express, but no, that doesn't happen. Maybe they plan on bringing in more of the boss characters if they get a second season. That certainly seems to be what they were hinting at the end of this first one. And it was a fine run. I have to admit though, I was a little taken aback at first. I thought each episode was 15 minutes long, but well, by the 10-minute mark of the first episode, the credits started to roll and it was like 5 minutes of credits, so kudos there, Netflix. There seems to be a bit of schizophrenia when it comes to the Cuphead show, where it seems like the writers couldn't decide if they wanted to have an episodic show or to have some sort of continuous narrative, so there's some bits that reference the first episode and the plot with the devil, and then everything else is standalone. Whether you enjoy that format is up to you, but I personally think they could have done with structuring things a little bit better. But at the end of the day, these are all minor quibbles, and I guess I should be thankful that Netflix didn't Netflix all over this show and just let it remain as a funny, quirky cartoon instead of trying to make some stupid, gritty, maudlin drama out of it. This is important to me personally because it seems today that all you see is violence in movies and sex on TV, but here's a show that represents all those good old-fashioned family values upon which we used to rely. While the first season of the Cuphead Show isn't a perfect adaptation by any means, I still think it's a good foundation for things to come, being a visual treat to watch that genuinely got a few laughs out of me at times. And it really does capture the vibe of those 1940s cartoons, where you have this funny goblin of a main character. And all the other characters that show up are pretty fun too. Kinda wish there was more Miss Chalice. I liked her a lot and she only appears in one episode, but hey, that to be continued sign was pretty tempting. Here's hoping season 2 doesn't drop the ball. Things being as they are, it's likely gonna come out well before Delicious Last Course does.